Welcome into this edition of Edgefield County News, the podcast. And I am Tony Bauman, your editor and publisher of the Edgefield County News, on the square in downtown Edgefield for this very first edition of our podcast. Actually sitting in a location that has a dear place in my heart that I will explain to you later as we work through this very first podcast. It was 6 years ago, at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, that I walked away from a love affair that had captivated me for more than 3 decades, since my various earliest days out of high school. With our world in chaos and with the question of public health becoming so politicized and divisive on so many fronts, I turned my back on journalism. Now, this was not a graceful exit. I had become so frustrated with outlandish conspiracy theories, partisan gamesmanship, and strident opposition to drive-through COVID testing, pop-up vaccine clinics, and seemingly innocuous requests to wear masks to help stem the tide of the disease that would ultimately end up killing more than 7 million people. And I literally threw up my hands and said that I was done forever with the career that had fed my belly and fueled my imagination since I was 17 years old. I reasoned, what could a small-town weekly newspaper editor do that would ever again matter in a world gone completely mad? I started looking for a way to make a living wage in the nonprofit sector, where I figured things were safe. My search eventually would land me in the classrooms of Saluda County schools as a substitute teacher, and then in time on the campus of the South Carolina Governor's School for Agriculture at John De La Hale in McCormick County. So for much of the past 5 years, I have served as the resident storyteller at the nation's only residential high school, boarding school, devoted to agricultural education. However far out in the wilderness that I ran, however, my love of trying to capture lightning in a bottle, of chasing good news narratives and delivering them to audiences of readers, listeners, and or viewers, that passion never fully vacated my body. The soul of a storyteller still beats within me. I am called to be a communicator. This I know, which is why in the fall of 2020, I eagerly embraced a request by a longtime friend and broadcasting colleague to help him launch an internet radio station. This was after KSX 92.7 FM, the local oldies station in Johnston, was sold to a religious broadcasting network. To this day, I still host the afternoon show on Timeless Jukebox Radio online, though most of my shows, admittedly, are pre-recorded. While I've been blithely basking in the farm living like Oliver Wendell Douglas from Green Acres, the sacred world of journalism that I left behind has suffered a fate strangely akin to a pandemic. Over the past 2 decades, according to the Local News Initiative Project at Northwestern University, more than 3,200 print newspapers have ceased publication. That's more than 3,200 just in the past 20 years. Research has predicted by the end of 2025, the United States would have lost fully 1/3 of all its printed newspapers. Today, fewer than 5,600 newspapers remain, and most of them are community weeklies. Just this past week, the venerable Atlanta Journal-Constitution, which has published a print edition of some iteration since 1868, announced that its final newspaper would go to press on December 31st. The AJC is pushing all its remaining chips into the dicey digital game. Now, some call this phenomenon the digital disruption, and this is indeed an apt description. The good old days of opening up the morning paper over breakfast and flipping through the pages while sipping a soothing cup of coffee and getting ink on your fingertips are seemingly fading into memory. But some of us remain nostalgic, no matter how tech-savvy or dependent upon social media we may be. I began my journalism career in the summer of 1986 at a very fine print newspaper that is still cranking out the presses 5 days a week, the Aiken Standard, although that 5 days a week is down from 7 days a week when I was working there. In time, I would follow a beloved mentor here to Edgefield County to join the staff of the Citizen News, which was published inside the building outside which I sit right now, directly across the square and in direct competition at the time with South Carolina's oldest newspaper, the Edgefield Advertiser. Now, my career aspirations and personal life choices soon would take me up to Ohio, then to North Carolina, then to South Georgia. But finally in 2002, after a heartbreaking split with the love of my life, I somehow stumbled back to the home, my home, back home to this corner office of the Citizen News. And inside that building, outside which I'm sitting, I was proud to serve as editor and regional publisher for a while, covering, yes, the everyday happenings of Edgefield County, but at the same time, such once-in-a-lifetime, uniquely Edgefieldian stories as the 100th birthday of the legendary Senator Strom Thurmond, his death in June 2003, and the revelation a few months later of a daughter that old Strom never publicly acknowledged while he was alive. Soon, though, restless youth, I followed another siren call into broadcasting. Well, to no fault of my own, the Citizen News folded in 2013. And today, the proverbial last man standing in the Edgefield County newspaper wars is that majestic old gray lady, the Edgefield Advertiser, right across the square. My genuine prayer is that this classic small-town newspaper will continue to churn out weekly print editions for many years to come, perhaps against all odds. But after 6 years estranged from my love of community journalism, I once again heard the whispers that so often only men and women with storytelling in their blood can discern. That strange pull to get back into the craft has been nagging at me for some months now, even as I've tried to silence it by focusing on earning a state teaching certification to teach middle school social studies. But as the great Jackie Wilson once sang, the whispers have been getting louder. Last Friday night, that still soft voice became a full-throated call to action as I was sitting in the Timeless Jukebox radio studios producing our live broadcast of Strom Thurmond High School football. There was much conversation on that coverage about the pregame and halftime festivities honoring the 2005 state championship football team. And in the words of an old Van Morrison song, it casts my memory back there, Lord. It was a magical night that autumn, exactly 20 years ago, at Williams-Brice Stadium. It seemed that the whole population of Edgefield County had trekked to Columbia. And even though I didn't graduate from Strom Thurmond High School, I remember standing on the sidelines being as thrilled for those boys and Coach Lee Sawyer as if I had myself worn the blue and red back in the halcyon days of my reckless youth. All that talk about the 20th anniversary of the state championship somehow crystallized for me that I do dearly love being a witness to history, and I love having the privilege to compose whatever first draft of that history that I can muster in the moment. After our radio broadcast ended, I stayed up until the wee hours of Saturday morning, putting together the pieces for this project, and finally committed myself to do all I can to make this notion last as long as we can find an audience. Edgefield County News is now, and always will be, a work in progress, as breaking news is. I have pressed a hard pause on my preparations to become a certified teacher to devote all my available energy, beyond my work at Timeless Jukebox Radio, of course, to this project. My first two actual stories are now underway. The first, in fact, is already published on our website, along with my introductory column. And in time, well, I've added this audio podcast, and in time, we will add video programming to a companion YouTube channel. I will be in constant prayer that between some advertising partners who see the vision and maybe a strategic donation here or there from you in the name of community journalism, I will be able to pay my bills and feed myself and feed my three-legged canine companion Tank and feed his feline friend Frankie. I'm excited to once again cover festivals and parades in Edgefield County, government meetings and sporting events, and to discover lively stories of the people and places and events here in Edgefield County. I ask that you please bear with me as I knock the dust off my storytelling skills. In fact, as soon as we are eligible, I plan for Edgefield County News to join the South Carolina Press Association to compete for some journalism awards and to give our community a wider voice in the world of community journalism. Personally, I don't view Edgefield County News as competition to that resilient old Edgefield Advertiser across the square. I have fully embraced the digital disruption, and there are no newsprint purchases in my future. No ink to be had. I sincerely hope both our outlets can keep the home fires of community journalism burning right here in Edgefield County for many years to come. For me, Edgefield County News is a letter to the love that I left behind 6 years ago, and a prayerful attempt to reconcile with the better angels of my sacred calling to the time-honored craft of news reporting, feature writing, photography, and video production. I just pray that God will smile on this effort as I grow every day to rediscover my lost love for community journalism. Well, I am sitting here on the square in Edgefield, but this past weekend, as I began putting this project together, I took a road trip around Edgefield County from the north side down to the Meriwether area, from the west side all the way over to Trenton. And what I discovered is an absolute beautiful county where I've worked much of my professional career in one form or another, but is still rich with stories and colorful personalities. One of my stops was at Cook's Farm and Roadside Market in Trenton on the last weekend of their 65th summer season. Yesterday, I published a feature story on the Cook family and that 65th anniversary season that you can read on our website. But I wanted to share with you my conversation with Pam Cook, the wife of Larry Cook, who has carried the torch for the Cook family since 1960, along with his brother. I had that conversation to celebrate 6.5 decades of feeding the people of Edgefield County and capturing a little bit of nostalgia here in this marvelous place. Here now is my conversation with Pam Cook of Cook's Farm and Roadside Market. Talk to me a little bit about the history.
This is really an integral part of the agriculture history of Edgefield County.
Well, we're a small family farm. This is our 65th summer, our season selling peaches. Larry's and Raymond's father, Claude Cook, planted his peach trees. He died in 1960. He probably planted them in 58.
Mm-hmm.
And they would have picked their first peaches the summer of 1960. He passed away in early May. So he didn't get to pick any of his first peaches. But from that time on, Larry was 11 years old. Larry and Raymond's wife Barbara sold peaches out under the tree over here on the side of the road.
Yeah.
What they picked every summer, they sold, and the business just grew and grew and grew, and then they moved over here. This was Claude's country store. there were used to be gas tanks out front, because it was just a little country store where folks could stop in and pick up bread, milk, a drink, cola or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
And it just, and of course, as things have evolved over the years, agritourism and all the things, these roadside stands, they've become more than just iconic. They really are. They're part of the fabric of what it means to be South Carolina.
I agree.
Yeah, and so, do you sense that when you're out here doing what you do in the summer, and now that you've entered into the fall season, do you sense that you're keeping a tradition alive? You're keeping something special alive?
I do. We've watched children grow up, and now those children are coming, and now those children's children are coming. We've got grandchildren that talk about coming with their grandparents here to buy. And yes, we've seen a lot of that.
And you're winding down now. You're entering into your fall season now. The hot season really is the peach season.
Right.
Do you have a ballpark of how many people might stop here on a typical day during the summer?
In July, the height of our season, when the really good freestone peaches are in, and when people are wanting to buy larger quantities and all, and they're traveling to the beach and those kinds of things, or placing orders to come pick up a lot of peaches. Well, I had no idea. It's hundreds. On a busy weekend around the 4th of July, the weekend before, the weekend after, and really any of the weekends after the 4th of July, in July, hundreds.
Yeah, and they must be from all over the country.
They are from all over the state. We catch a lot of traffic coming from the upstate headed to the beach. We have customers out of Aiken and Augusta. We have customers from McCormick, the big
Savannah Lakes
community up there, Savannah Lakes. We get a lot of customers there. Greenwood, we have a lot. We even have occasionally some that come from Columbia, and they come right by some peaches in the ridge, but they've been buying here.
Yeah.
So they continue to come.
And you have people who, I guess it's become a tradition for people to stop at Cook's.
Yes.
So you see the same people year after year after year who do a part of that. Why is that important? Why do you think it's important? So your 65th year, so you're wrapping up, you've just wrapped up your 65th summer. Why is it important to keep these things alive? Beyond the income.
We see it as a service to the community. We enjoy growing as much of our produce as we can. We can't grow it all.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, when farming's in your blood, it's just in your blood, And that's kind of the way it is. Larry is carrying on the tradition. Raymond passed away in 2010. Larry is carrying on that tradition. Raymond's son is involved. So that's 1, 2, 3 generations. Our son is coming back to the farm. He has moved from Atlanta.
Wow.
He's living here in Trenton. So he's the same generation as Thomas. That's 3 generations. But then his son and my daughter's son have worked here too, so that's a 4th generation working here. And I don't know, when it's in your blood, it's just in your blood. That's
beautiful. Stands like this, and particularly this one that's been here as long as it has, this is kind of what Edgefield County is all about. Family, agriculture.
When Helene hit
last fall,
and so many people were without power, we were very fortunate. We're close to this substation down here. Our power came back on the same day.
Wow.
And Larry said, I'm going to the market if I can get there. And he went to the market. We were just on our Thursday, Friday, Saturday schedule, but we went ahead and opened up on a Monday, or I think it was a Monday. He said, because I can get food that people cannot get because grocery stores are closed. And so he went. We don't typically carry eggs, but he brought back things like eggs and butter. He bought a lot of sweet potatoes, and we have a gas stove, but we had electricity. We baked sweet potatoes and passed them out to people who stopped. People in the community knew we were baking sweet potatoes and giving them away. The beauty of a baked sweet potato is you don't have to refrigerate it. You know, it doesn't have to be piping hot to be good. Right. So many people appreciated, you know, to get that baked sweet potato. And a lot of them took them home with them, and they'd say, can I have one from a neighbor? She's elderly, you know, and they would take one to her. We baked potatoes for a week, just as hard as we could bake. And then we, of course, were able to pick up other kinds of produce and things that people could buy, because they could travel here where other stores were closed. And one of the same things with COVID, when COVID hit and everyone had to stay away from stores and things, we were open air. So we ran more then because people could come and shop.
Yeah.
And that was the first year of our December shopping market too, was the COVID year.
That, yeah.
Because people couldn't go in, or did not want to go into stores and things, and we were open air. So we're a part of the community. We serve our community.
That is so beautiful. See, this is going to be a great first story.
Sometimes we deliver peaches. Sometimes we make arrangements. I had a lady in the Greenville area want some of our soup mix, which is just fabulous. Of course, we don't can it because there's not enough hours in the day.
Right.
And not enough, we don't have that kind of facility. And she was wanting me to ship it to her. I said, ma'am, those are quart jars. That's going to cost a fortune. And I said, wait just a minute. I had a friend who was coming back and forth. I said, she lives in Simpsonville. I'll send your soup mix to Simpsonville. And she went to her house, picked it up, was able to get her. This is an older lady, an elderly lady. She was able to get her soup mix without paying that expensive shipping and all of that. So we try to do things to help our community. I have vendors that come for, we've started the new trend of the pop-up shops.
Right.
I had one here this morning, the bagel lady. She was here. I don't charge anything for those kinds of things. You know, if she wants to come pop up her tent and have her little business there to the side, like the cake man, you know, it's fine. We welcome that. We try to showcase community talent, you know, and then other resources and things.
Gosh.
Just to be part of the community.
And you are. For 65 years. That's pretty amazing.
Pam Cook in the kitchen at Cook's Farm and Roadside Market, talking about the history, the 65-year history of that roadside stand. And I want to wrap up with the words of Larry Cook, who was 11 years old when he started selling peaches under an oak tree, not too far from where the current fruit stand is located. I caught up with Larry Cook right before I left Cook's Roadside Market, and I asked him about why. Why does he keep doing it after all these years? Why run a roadside fruit stand? Why grow and pick peaches? Beyond the money, what is it that keeps Larry Cook and the Cook family, 4 generations of Cook family, doing what they do. Here's what Larry said.
What would you say to young people about why agriculture is so necessary?
To feed the people. They've got to have food, fresh food is better for you than some of this processed stuff you get. So
Right.
everything fresh is better. Locally grown. Everything's fresh, everything's good. We guarantee everything we sell.
And in this day and age, I mean, we got all this technology and stuff like this. This really is a throwback to a bygone era, isn't it? I mean, there's something pure about this.
Yeah. It's something that gets in your blood, and you want to make it do good.
Yeah, and you've been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, we have.
Larry Cook, one of the subjects of the very first feature story published on Edgefield County Now. Look for more feature stories to unfold. Look for government coverage. Look for basically us to try to keep our finger on the pulse of what's happening in Edgefield County and deliver it to you in a timely manner. Thank you for listening to this very first edition of the Edgefield County Now podcast. I will be back on our next episode when we will look ahead to Terms of Endearment, the season opening production of the Main Street Players in downtown Edgefield, not too far from where I'm sitting outside the old offices of the Citizen News. They're taking to the stage at the end of the month, and we will preview the Main Street Players bringing arts and culture to Edgefield County. I'm Tony Ballman, publisher and editor of the Edgefield County News, and I'll see you next time right here in Edgefield, or Johnston, or Trenton, or maybe somewhere out there on those windy back roads. You never know where Edgefield County News will be.